This one. This question is quite hard for you to get accurately with the answer book because in any form of reproduction of this diagram, it nearly always changes size. So you should read these and make sure you are reading to the nearest centimetre. Accurately means go 1 unit down. So you need to measure to the nearest millimetre. And what they say is this is 10.3 millimetres and 6.7 millimetres. You're allowed 1 millimetre either side. If you get 10 or 10.5, that's outright a wrong answer. Okay? So we've measured those using a ruler. Long diagonal was the 10.3, short diagonal was the 6.7. They then give us a formula for calculating it. Again, I need my calculator to do this. And it says, take your two lengths and multiply them. So 10.3 multiplied by 6.7. And that's actually an area of a rectangle that just surrounds this rhombus. It's actually a rectangle that covers it. It then says, divide by 2. So divide my answer by 2. Now, because they've given us no more leeway on our answer here, I would write down every single digit I see in the calculator. So I'm going to put in here, first mark, 34.505. That's the first mark only. I now have to give it also, notice there's no units, the second mark is for giving the correct units. Okay? So as the units aren't there, give them. This is centimetres times centimetres, so the units are centimetres squared. That gives me all my marks. Question number 6. This is a survey. It's a line graph, and it allows you to actually make estimates between times. In a minute, I'll talk a little bit more about sorts of things they sometimes ask. So in 1992, there were roughly how many mobile phones? Look at the divisions. That's about 5. This is clearly less than half. So as it's an estimate, I'm going to go for 2 million. It's clearly more than 1 on that one. 10 years later, so 10 years later I've got to look at what year is that, and that's 2002. So in 2002, it's exactly 50 million. From 1998 to 1999, the number of mobile phones increased by about. So in these two, I need to estimate 1998 looks like it's 13, and that one looks like it's 24. So the increase was difference between those two. You could do it on a calculator if you really needed to. That's 11 million. Common type of thing that might happen with these questions, though, is give an estimate between two lines. So I could estimate about halfway through to 1995, there appeared to be roughly this number. If I read across, there's about 6 million calculators. That's what the purpose of the line graph is there for, is it allows you to make a guess in between. It is a guess. You're not able to turn around and say, there were definitely 6 million calculators between midway through 1995. You can only say it looks like it's an estimate. Question next. Number 7. These are groups of numbers. First group is half the size of the second group. So let's just quickly do a quick calculation, and the total here is 10. That works. If we have a look at them, this is actually a very big clue. If I was to put the 5 back in, I've now got 15. So I want to split this in a group where it's in a ratio of 1 to 2. That means the ratio is always going to be 5 to 10 because the total of these numbers is 15. Okay? So I need to think of different ways of making 5. Well, I've got 1 and 4. That leaves me 2, 3 and 5. Next one is 2 and 3. That leaves me 1, 4 and 5. Those work. Okay? Sorry, not 5. 2 and 3. Next question, last one. On the grid, draw a triangle with no right angles. That can be just any triangle except one where you're using a horizontal and vertical line and angle. So anything like that where it goes slopey. Be careful that you don't do one using two 45-degree angles. That would not work because this is a right angle. Okay? So make sure you're not using diagonals across the squares. If you are going to keep talking, I am going to stop the video now and we'll go 10 minutes into your break time. So shh. On the grid, draw a quadrilateral with no right angles. Same idea, just make sure you're not using horizontal and vertical lines and not using 45-degree lines. I would probably go with create myself a rhombus using sloping sides so that they clearly won't match up. Or draw a parallelogram. You've got loads of options, you can do those. Last one. How many right angles? All right, I'm going to pause now and I'm going to wait until you're all silent. So we need to say how many right angles does this shape on the grid have? This is the rule about the 45-degree sloping lines. Be careful about using those because they create right angles at that corner. There is actually one right angle. I'm not letting you go just yet because I just made a request.